We started?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us to discuss the latest draft of the Housing Stability Program. I'm Deborah Jenkins, the Executive Director of the Oklahoma Housing Finance Agency, and I have with me Kurt Feit, Deputy Executive Director and CFO, Valenthia Doolin, Homeownership Director, Danette Carr, Housing Development Supervisor, Corey Borneman, Housing Development Supervisor, and Holly Mangum, our Communications Manager. OHFA appreciates the feedback we've received thus far. It's been instrumental in helping us to create the Housing Stability Program and develop draft emergency rules. We want to thank the Oklahoma Legislature and especially the authors of House Bill 1031, Representative and Chairman Kevin Wallace, and Senator Chuck Hall for ensuring that Oklahoma's housing shortage was a top priority this past legislative session and will continue to be until there is sufficient housing throughout Oklahoma. So what are our next steps? After we have the meeting today, OHFA's Board of Trustees will meet during a special session December 20th at 10 a.m. to consider the draft emergency rules. If approved, the rules will be submitted to the governor for consideration. If approved by the governor, OHFA will be prepared to accept applications the first quarter of 2024. So with that, I will turn it over to Corey Borneman.
Hey, thanks, Deborah. Appreciate it. So as Deborah mentioned, we appreciate all the feedback we've gotten thus far. We're going to go through a little bit of a refresher on everything in totality from the beginning for anyone who's joining who is new to the program or just wants some baseline specifics. We're going to go through a little bit. Essentially, House Bill 1031 created the Oklahoma Housing Stability Program, and in doing that, it created three things. We have the Oklahoma Home Builder Program. That's about $100 million available to home builders who want to build single-family homes. It created the Oklahoma Increased Housing Program. That's about $63 million for developers who want to build either single-family or multifamily residences for rental. And then it's also got another $40 million piece that is going to be available for down payment and closing cost assistance for home buyers who want to build homes produced by the Oklahoma Home Builder Program. Holly's got a fact sheet that she's going to share with everybody, I believe, that you all can see as we run down through it.
Yes, Corey, I will go ahead and share that. I also wanted to say that if you have a question as we're going through this,
Yes.
We will answer the questions at the end of each section. So if you will put those questions in the chat, we will get to those that way. And then depending on time, we may open it up for verbal questions.
Yes, thank you, Holly. And I'll also say, if you have any feedback following this session, we do have that discussion board that's live that can be accessed out on our website. So certainly encourage everybody, if you have any feedback following this session, go out there and put that out there. We'll be, as Deborah mentioned, accepting comment through, I believe, the end of Tuesday next week, and we'll turn around finalized documents after that, and we'll post those to our website and take them to the board meeting on December 20th that Deborah just mentioned. So we're very excited about the opportunity that this presents the state of Oklahoma and the individuals on this call to hopefully utilize these funds and have the ability to access these funds. So we're truly excited for the opportunity, and we're going to run down through it here, and we welcome any feedback. Thanks for sharing that, Holly. So we can start with the Oklahoma Increased Housing Program, which on the fact sheet is represented as the developer subsidy for rental housing. And essentially, like I was saying, this is $63 million for developers who want to build single family or multifamily residences for rental. You'll be allowed to apply for a loan of up to $30 million or 85%. That's his loan to value, but it's your total development cost essentially is what it is. Applicants must have a minimum liquid net worth of 5% of the loan amount outside of the development. So if you're proposing to bring some of your own money to the development, you have to bring, you have to have a minimum liquid net worth of 5% of the loan amount that you're proposing to borrow. These are 0% interest rate, 24-month loan, collateralized construction loans. If the loan is not paid back within that 24 months, the interest rate is accelerated to prime +3. Construction must start within 9 months of the award. Developer or builder must have experience proportionate to the number of proposed units that they are proposing to build. You can build a maximum of 200 units using program funds. If this were to be a layered source and a capital stack. Rents are capped at 125% of area fair market rents for 3 years. After that, those rent restrictions go away. 75% of the funds will be available in rural Oklahoma. 25% will be available in urban Oklahoma, and we define rural as either USDA-RD or non-MSA. Developer fees will be limited to 10% of each draw. So as you make draws on the construction loan, your developer fee is going to be limited to 10% of that. OHFA will retain 20% of the developer fee until certificate of occupancy is received. And once we receive CFO, you'll get the 20% of developer fee that's retained. General contractor fees are limited to 15% of the total development costs. You must adhere to the Oklahoma Uniform Building Code when utilizing these funds, and the loan must be repaid before submitting another application for this program. And then we'll have an environmental assessment that's required post-award. Those are, again, some of the basics of the Oklahoma Increased Housing Program, the rental piece, and we can do the home ownership piece next. Probably, if you don't mind scrolling up a little. Or yeah.
Hey Corey, we need to be sure that the chat window is open.
Yeah.
That someone commented that maybe the chat isn't open.
I'm trying to fix that. So let me do some, the Q&A is available. So if individuals have questions and they want to type them into the Q&A, we can answer them that way, but I need to check on some settings.
Okay, no worries. On the home builder side, very similar, but a few more nuances to the rental piece. But OHFA is going to provide 90% of the financing in the form of these loans. The home builder must provide 10% of their own financing up front, so 10% of their own equity contribution to the development when OHFA brings the other 90%. The applicant, again, must have a minimum liquid net worth of 5% of the loan amount outside of that 10% that you're bringing into the development. Again, a 0% interest rate, 24-month collateralized loan. If on this piece, the loans aren't repaid in 24 months, that interest rate gets accelerated to prime +1. Construction must start within 180 days of award. You must have experience proportionate to the number of units that you're proposing to build. On this piece, you have to build a minimum of 5 homes with a maximum of 25, but scattered sites are allowed if you wanted to build a few homes in a few different towns. Again, 75% of the funds will be available in rural areas, while 25% will be available in urban. The sizes of the homes for this program are going to range between 1,000 and 2,000 square feet. So you're not allowed to build any homes less than 1,000 square feet. You're not allowed to build any homes more than 2,000 square feet. Again, that down payment and closing cost assistance that's available with this program is going to be used solely for homes produced by this program. So that could be available to potential home buyers if they qualify. The homes must be owner-occupied for 3 years. This will be enforced by deed restriction. After 3 years, that deed restriction will expire and fall off. There's no income restrictions for these home buyers unless that down payment assistance is required. Again, on this, it's the same kind of setup as the rental piece, where your developer fee, your maximum per draw is going to be that 10%, and we'll retain 20% until CFO is received, and then we'll release that to you. General contractor fees are limited to 15% of your total development costs. You must also adhere to the Uniform Building Code for this one, and then the loans must be repaid before submitting another application for this program. I know a big question that we'll probably get today is when are we going to take applications? Like Deborah said, we're taking the rules in our applications to our December 20th meeting. After that, we'll submit the rules to the governor for approval. If they approve, we should be ready to go live with the program early in 2024. If they are not approved, we will have to go through the regular rulemaking process with the state legislature, which could put us in a program start of late summer 2024. And with that, I'll turn it over to Valentia to cover some of the down payment assistance portion of this program.
Thank you, Corey. There are some specific questions related to that program. Do you want to answer those questions before we move into the other areas, or do you want me to do the brief description of down payment assistance and then answer all questions?
You can do the DPA and then we can open it up to everything. Thanks, Ron.
Great. So the money that has been set aside in the Housing Stability Program to support down payment and closing costs assistance allows for $40 million in that category. We will provide up to 5% of the total loan amount for individuals who purchase a home that is built in the Housing Stability Program that can be used toward down payment and closing cost assistance. That 5% grant will be coupled with our existing 3.5% down payment assistance program, where the 3.5% is a second and is repayable. The 5% grant will be forgiven after a period of 3 years. If an individual moves or sells their home in that 3-year period, they will be responsible for repaying 100% of the 5% assistance that they received. The eligibility requirements for receiving the down payment assistance are consistent with our existing eligibility requirements in our down payment and closing cost assistance program, which means that there is a credit score requirement of 640. There is an income limit that does not allow for the participant's income to exceed $150,000 a year on the maximum end. There are multiple loan products and loan programs, and so the family size and income size could change depending on the loan type that is selected. If the individual is using our tax-exempt mortgage revenue bond loan program, their income eligibility is determined by household income. If they are using our dream loan programs, then their income is determined by lender qualifying income. But the max level of income allowed would be $150,000 per year across the board. Our debt to income ratio maximum or ceiling for participating and using the down payment assistance program is 45% for all government loans and 50% for our conventional loan option. Again, it is a mixture. So you have 5% grant that is forgivable after 3 years. It will be coupled and must be coupled with our existing 3.5% repayable DPA that is repayable upon maturity of the first mortgage, sell or refinance of the home, or change in primary ownership status. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, we do have some questions in the chat. Can you clarify the 15% of development funds limit for general contractor fees?
Yeah, that's a good question. Thanks, Holly. Essentially, your general contractor fees for the development are limited to 15% of your total development cost.
Okay, and land is considered as equity against 5%?
They might be that's probably pertaining to the 5% of the liquid net worth requirement that we have. If you're using land, donated land as a source for the development, you need a minimum liquid net worth of 5% outside of that.
See. In rural areas, who will issue the certificate of occupancy? Some towns do not do that, and there are no inspections in unincorporated areas.
That's a really good question. I know that that's something that we've had a couple discussions about internally. We would probably look to either a GC architect, an AIA certification or something of that nature to certify that. And then, of course, we're going to have inspectors who go out there to do that as well. So we'll come up with something to serve as in lieu of that. Obviously, a C of O is preferred for us, but if that's not able to get obtained, we'll find the next best item that we can obtain to satisfy that.
Okay, someone said they have 10+ acres of land and want to build 200 units. Is that possible?
Yeah. If you can plan it out to do that on there, that's great.
I do want to point out, Corey, that that person is the same individual that asked the question about whether or not land can be used against the 5% liquid net requirement.
Mhm.
So let's try to make sure we're answering that question in relation. Both of those are related to the same question.
Mhm. Yeah, so you can have donated land as a contribution, but you need 5% of your liquid net worth outside of that. But the 10+ acres, if you want to do 200 units on it, that's completely fine.
What kind of lead time is expected between announcement and application deadline?
That's a really good question. I think we've talked about anywhere between 45 to 60 days once we know that it's approved, and then line it up with a board meeting. That would be probably somewhere between 60 days after a deadline. So we'll know more once it's approved. And of course, we want to give enough time for all applicants to be able to access these funds and garner the items that are required in the applications to put an application together and submit it. So we certainly want to be mindful of that, and we want to get the program up and running. So I'd say probably that 60-day window, but that'll be something that we hash out once we find out about the programs being approved.
Previously, adaptive reuse of vacant, currently standing structures were included in the development subsidy for rental housing. It appears that all references to this have been removed from the OHFA language. Why has this adaptive reuse rehabilitation effort been deemed ineligible for this program, particularly in small rural communities? There is a glut of vacant buildings, often in the town's main downtown area, that are available to convert into housing. It is more affordable for the towns to use these buildings instead of more urban sprawl, as the utilities and other infrastructure already exist and are already being maintained by the city. It keeps their overhead lower. It seems counterintuitive to be creating more affordable housing to ignore this opportunity for affordable housing in rural communities.
That's a good question. There's a few items there. I think one of the things we want to keep in mind is that this program, when the legislature approved House Bill 1031, that this program was not designed to be an affordable housing program. It was designed to be an increased housing program. We're trying to increase the supply of available housing in the state of Oklahoma, and hopefully by nature that creates some affordable housing along the way. With regard to any adaptive reuse, it's clear to us that the legislative intent of these funds was to be utilized for new construction only. Sticks and bricks ground up, but that also could include manufactured, modular, and other innovative housing types, as we state in the application. But adaptive reuse isn't going to be something that we allow for this program.
Could you clarify the no income limits for renters?
No income limits. So there aren't any income limits for the renters of the Oklahoma Increased Housing Program, the rental subsidy part. It's just a fair market rent restriction that will be placed on the owners, to where the rents of the development itself will be capped at those 125% of FMR, but there won't be any income restrictions for those tenants. It's only the rent restriction. So the amount you pay in rent will be restricted.
On the multifamily program, in the current economic environment with high interest rates and low tax credit pricing, the conversion of this program from free money grants to articulated and repeated at the Tulsa public meeting earlier this year to a recourse short-term debt offering is of limited and incentive to multifamily affordable developers. What was the specific cause of the conversion from free money grants to recourse short-term debt? And if the cause was the legislature, please share whom so contacts can be made to return the program to incentive-driven free money grants.
Kurt, do you want
Well, the program was initially, it did have some forgiveness in it, and the Legislative Office of Fiscal Transparency was reviewing this program and opined that the way the statute was written, it did not allow for grants to be given. It needed to be a loan, and that's the way the legislation is. So that's the reason for it not being a free money program and going to a loan.
Yeah, thanks, Kurt.
So it will be late next year before someone could actually close on a house, since you have to wait until a home is built. Also, can this be used in any county?
Yeah, that is true. And yes, it can be used in any county across the state, but 75% of the money is for rural Oklahoma and 25% is for urban.
This person wants to know how to apply for home ownership. It's very complicated and I have a disability. Does someone want to maybe address not just this program, but just briefly what other programs we may have in place to help?
I think I want to try to address the question. The question says how to apply for homeowners. This is complicated and I'm disabled. We think we've made it as simple as we can for homeowners who desire to apply for our assistance, in that you don't actually make a separate application to OHFA for any of our assistance programs, including HSP. You would actually make your application to the home builder themselves if you are going to purchase a home that is being built in HSP. If you are applying for down payment assistance, you're actually making an application directly to a participating lender. Those participating lenders are listed on our website at www.ohfa.org under the Homebuyer tab. You would make your application for a mortgage loan directly to the participating lender. And that lender, by nature of the fact that you are requesting down payment and closing cost assistance, will use an OHFA loan product to support your need for a mortgage loan. I hope that that answers the question. If not, feel free to reach out to us on our Own a Home email address, which can be found again on our website. If you go to www.ohfa.org, under the Home Buyers tab, there is an email box that you can use to send us any question that you have about participating in our programs, and gladly one of our staff would be able to assist you.
Okay. If a development is over 200 units, can the application be for up to 200, leaving the overage outside of the application process?
That's another good question. Initially, that would be a no. You could certainly phase the development to where you could do another phase after those 200, but it is limited to 200 for this program.
Okay. Morris, Oklahoma is not shown on your county list for building houses for selling. I have bought that land. I've spent over $700,000, but it is with a loan.
So, with regard to Morris, Oklahoma specifically, that should be allowed. You're allowed to use the program statewide. The list that they may be referring to is a list that we published that we got from the Oklahoma Department of Commerce, which is a list of preference sites that will receive points in the application itself for building there, but you don't have to build specifically in sites on that list. It's just a preference list, but you're allowed to build statewide.
Okay, let's see, when the program first came out, sorry, it's moving very fast. Let's see. Let me go to this one. You have a couple of restrictions in the application that would prevent a single developer from having more than one deal open at any time. Well, that makes sense if the money is flying out the door. Can you look at releasing these restrictions if you have funds sitting and not enough applicants to use all the money each year?
I think that's something that we're currently considering internally, and if we do make that decision, it'll be reflected in the finalized documents that we release.
Okay. The person who asked about Morris, Oklahoma said, is this a good scenario to be considered with sweat equity consideration?
I don't think that that's a component of this program, but it's a good question. It's some good feedback that we can consider.
If this program is to provide affordable housing, why is the minimum square footage set at 1,000 square feet?
Another good question. So this program, again, it wasn't designed for affordable housing. It was designed to create an increase of housing supply across the state. We did originally have that square footage set higher. But after a lot of feedback we got, we think 1,000 square feet is the right minimum to build a good sustainable home, and that could be done economically to create natural affordability in the market for those homes.
Is OHFA looking at bringing on in-house construction inspection with their administrative budget from this program?
We are, and if we do, that'll be referenced as well whenever we get some further approvals of the program, and once we do, we'll make that known.
When the program
Well, I was just going to add on the thing with the construction inspections. That was one of the feedback that we got, is that having to pay for construction inspections was, tough on developers. And so OHFA is going to bring that cost in-house, and there won't be costs anticipated to be passed on to the developers with regard to the inspections. So that'll make the program easier and more affordable for developers.
When the program first came out, there was a white paper. Now the only program guidance, the handout, and the application packets. Is there anything else?
That's a good question. Yes, so we do have the 3-page flyer available on our website. We also have the 2 program applications, and we also have a set of emergency rules that will govern the program. That's what we have available right now.
If a realtor is involved, who pays for their work?
That's a good question.
I'm sorry, the question is, if a realtor is involved in helping a builder to sell the house that they have built, who would pay their commissions? It would operate the same way that it does currently in any real estate transaction. The responsibility for the realtor commission is based on the transaction that's created between the seller and the realtor.
Okay. I work in a city that donated land to our nonprofit to build new rental homes for the population we serve. Is this funding open to nonprofits?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
If I use this program to build a small apartment complex, do I still get to use the interest-only loan for the full term even after getting the final CO?
No, these are interest-only construction loans. You'll have to take it out with a permanent source. And if you don't take it out with a permanent source, as we alluded to earlier, that interest rate will get accelerated to prime +3 on the rental.
Where can we find the location site preference list that was mentioned? We have placed that on the OHFA website along with the rest of the housing stability program information.
Holly, there is a question, looks like we missed that ask, will builders be required to provide a homeowner's warranty? And the answer is yes, and it is a part of the application process. The document that would be required is a part of the application process for builders.
Okay, thank you, Valenthia. I live in Carter County and was told I had to be on rental assistance for a year before I could apply for home ownership, which I didn't even get. My rental, everything was so messed up. Okay, that's a different program. So what you will want to do is I can send you this information privately, but you will want to contact or I can actually just give it to you right now. You'll want to call the Family Self-Sufficiency Program that we have here at Oklahoma Housing Finance Agency. That's totally separate from this program. And so that telephone number is 405-419-8171. And that individual can, the individuals who work in that department can explain to you a little bit more how that program works. On the increased housing program, you have a lot of underwriting requirements for the permanent loan. They include a fixed interest rate. This is holdover from the low-income housing tax credit app and shouldn't be required for this program. You aren't carrying the perm. If we have a committed perm loan that works for us and the perm lender, you shouldn't have underwriting requirements that interfere with that.
That's good feedback. We'll definitely look at that.
Okay. Your amenities list requires we get 10 out of the 11 options. That steers us to larger towns that still qualify as rural. So what you're saying is yes to Pauls Valley and Duncan, but no to Marietta and Beaver. Smaller towns still need the housing, but don't have half of those amenities.
Okay, that's also good feedback. We can definitely look at that as well.
Let's see if we have missed any others. Can one entity get into 15 million for construction in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, which is an urban area?
It would depend on your development budget. That's pretty specific, but we're limited to 90% of your financing on a total development cost of 25 homes for development. So that could certainly be a number if that strikes that somewhere in there within the confines of the program. Sure.
What is the historical time frame of the disaster sites?
It's 12 months.
Realistically, on the last question about 15 million, if you kind of just do some math, I don't think it gets up that high.
I was going to say,
If you take 25 houses at 250,000, that's 6.25 million.
Oh,
so
yeah,
the 15 would be over the top.
Yeah.
I'm going to post some links into the Q&A or into the, and apologies about the chat situation. There's some kind of setting that I can't get to, but it looks like I can post in here the link to everything that we have for the for this program.
And I think it's also probably important to note that this is a completely new program for us. There's going to be some kinks along the way, but we really appreciate all the feedback we're getting I'm sure that once we get it rolling, some changes may need to be made. So we appreciate everybody's patience and feedback as we work through this. This has all been really helpful.
One of the
Great.
things that I'm posting in here is the Department of Commerce list that was mentioned earlier.
There is a participant with us today, Holly, that appears to have multiple questions about OHFA programs outside of HSP. So for everybody's information, I've provided them with my direct contact information and asked them to reach out to me directly so that I can figure out how to best help them.
Yes, definitely, Valenthia. Thank you so much. Will OHFA be required to be listed as an additional insured on the insurance policy?
That's a good
Yes.
I'll say yes, 100%.
Okay, there needs to be a lot more work with Commerce on their preference list. If we're not careful and their list comes out just for the app, it will drive land cost in the preference areas. This list needs to come out annually and be ignored by most people. We also need more than 60 days lead time to find that land.
The Commerce site preference list, if you look at it, it's really a very broad section of Oklahoma. It's not, like really winnowed down to very specific sites. It's generally on a county by county basis. So I don't think it'll have as big an impact as you might think. But we're open to any of the suggestions on that.
Okay. And someone asked where they could find that list, and I have posted it into the chat. But if for some reason you can't see that, that information is also on the Housing Stability Program webpage on the OHFA website.
Thank you.
And then we clarified the 15% of development funds. I believe that was the first question that we covered. And then we talked about the site preference list. I think that covers it. What do you want to do now? Do we want to, does anyone have any other questions? Where do we want to proceed now?
If anyone wants to raise their hand, we can take some questions or.
Also, back to the Commerce list, we anticipate maybe that being updated maybe twice a year or something like that. So it's not going to be like a rapidly changing list. It'll stay fairly static.
I do think it's important to acknowledge that it is the Commerce list and not the OHFA list. So the comment specifically said that more work needed to be done with Commerce on the development of their list. That's great feedback, but I don't know that that would be OHFA's role to work with Commerce on the development of their list.
And just some additional background, that's another thing that came from the Legislative Office of Fiscal Transparency. They thought that the state's lead economic development agency, which is the Department of Commerce, should have some input into this large statewide housing program. And the Commerce preference list is a result of that loft input.
We're going to go ahead and open it up now. If anyone wants to raise their hand to ask questions that way, instead of going through the Q&A.
It'd be great to hear any feedback about things that you guys think work well in what we've developed, since there have been some significant changes from the very beginning. That would be very helpful for us in terms of rolling out what we administer for a program.
Look at our participants list to see if anyone has a hand raised. Okay, let's see. Okay, I'm gonna give the floor to Lance Wendell.
So I think this is the first that I've seen that Commerce list. I agree, Kurt. It's really generic. when we've been talking about this commerce list before, it seemed like we were talking about one that was going to be a lot more specific. But is that the list that is it going to look like that? Is that what we're looking at?
That is the list that Commerce has asked us to include. And if you look
Perfect.
at it, it's basically just lots of huge counties, like Oklahoma County's on there, Tulsa County's on there, counties all over the state. So I think basically, if you look at it, about half the state is on that list, probably.
So yeah, I'll withdraw all my comments. I did not know that the list was going to. I thought it would be a much more specific list. This is a pretty benign thing.
Yeah, it wasn't like they're saying we want this particular industrial site at this address to be a preference list. It's like we want the county that has that industrial site in it to be a preference. So I think it'll be okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Lance.
Jim Rice had asked a question in the chat earlier that I typed the answer, but I just want to mention it on the thing. It says, will applications be first come, first served, or ranked at a deadline? We will have rounds, and the apps will be funded or ranked and scored against other apps that come in that same round. So it won't be first come, first served. They'll be batch, kind of like tax credit applications are now.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn the mic over to Stuart.
Good morning, and thank you for taking my question. This is actually Ryan Goodwin, Stewart's office manager. He's in another meeting at this time. He just wanted me to hit on this point. And I don't mean to totally derail everything. I just want to circle back to the adaptive reuse question that I had. I understand that you said it was the legislative intent for this to be newly created homes, but like we actually met with Representative Wallace and walked him through our program plans for what we wanted to do on some of this adaptive reuse. And he was very excited about the prospect and really encouraged us to follow up on that and push hard. So I was wondering if you could give us any insight into the legislative intent that you said this isn't supposed to be for rehab homes, it's only supposed to be for new construction, because the purpose of the program is to generate more housing. And if we can generate housing in a more affordable way, we can produce more of it. So it just really seems to fly in the face of logic to completely ignore this avenue for generating more housing.
That's some really good feedback. I definitely understand where you all are coming from. I think what we're tasked with is being put in a position where we've received legislative direction on this program. And the direction we have received is for these funds to be used solely for new construction. To where adaptive reuse, unfortunately, would not be allowed. But that's the direction that we've received. And so that is what we put forth in the program.
And
do you know,
just to clarify, just to clarify too, new construction has a number of different meanings. It can be manufactured housing. It could be 3D printed housing, any innovative housing approaches. That was one of Loft's suggestion, is that we include any innovative versions of new construction.
Okay. I appreciate that insight. And then just to be as black and white as we can, you've specifically received instruction from the legislation that this money is for new housing only.
If you look at when they were actually debating the bill on the floor, the intent of the legislature, the best we can read the tea leaves, is that it was for new construction. That's kind of the feedback that we've received along the way. We do think rehabs are important, but that's likely would be another state program if something comes along that maybe the legislature would fund in a different round.
Do you know of any programs that may be in the works? Anybody having water cooler talk about a program that might fund that, or are we just crossing our fingers and hoping?
We don't know of anything specific at this point. Of course, OHFA does have other resources for rehabs. We have the low-income housing tax credit program, the state tax credit program. I guess the state tax credit, that's might be just new construction. I apologize. But the federal tax credit could be used for rehabilitation.
Okay. Thank you for your time and answering my questions.
Okay, we have another question in the Q&A. What do the rounds look like? How many per year and when?
That's a good question. I think that's something that we're going to be able to shore up once we do receive approval for the program, but we're probably looking at a new application window every 60 days to align with our board meetings that are every odd month. So probably 5 to 6 rounds a year would be my guess.
Thank you, Corey. Will mixed use be allowed?
Mixed use. That's a good question. These funds would have to solely be used for, any residential units, but that's not to say that you couldn't do like a few story apartment complex with a first floor mixed use, but these funds would solely be used for the construction of the residential units.
Lance commented that the state tax credit is now $1 million per year for acquisition and rehab. Just a clarification on that. We had an individual who asked why not put more into rental assistance because it's closed for Oklahoma. Now no new applicants. That is not the intent of this particular program, is the short answer on that. So let's see, I'm scrolling. I think that's all in there. Does anyone else? Lance has his hand raised again. Let me go ahead.
Sorry, no, I didn't. My fault.
Oh, you didn't? Okay.
Hey, there was a question in the chat about environmental review required for the homeowner program. It's not like a full phase 1 environmental, but there will be a developer certification that has to be done about the environmental. So it will be covered. It's similar to what we currently require with our single family loan program now.
Sure.
Do you have to go back to the state legislature for approval of any changes you make to this program?
That's a good question. So what the state legislature will approve is our program rules. If they desire to see any changes in our rules, yes, we'll be required to go back to them with any changes to the rules that we make.
However, the OHFA Board of Trustees will be able to make adjustments to our applications. So as they need to evolve or the program needs to evolve, we'll be able to make some changes through the OHFA Board of Trustees, which would not require legislative approval.
Any other questions that anyone would like to raise their hand? If the program is not approved under emergency rules, what is the expected delay?
Another good question. We would probably be looking at late summer 2024 if the legislature approves them in their regular session. Throughout the spring, we would receive approval in the summer and be ready to go live with the program probably late summer.
Do you plan to have local offices in Greater Tulsa to address any critical situations?
Another good question. I don't believe that is a consideration of ours at this time, but good feedback nonetheless.
Where is the environmental form that Kurt referenced located in the application?
That's another good question. I believe it is on the checklist. That is the last 2 pages of the application, but I can pull it up and verify. Yeah, I believe it's the builder certification that we have on there. That serves as that form.
Staff will locate that exact form and post it out on the discussion board this afternoon, so you can see what the actual form is.
Yeah, I believe it's 92,541. Yeah.
Thank you both. Any other questions, either in the Q&A part, or if anyone would like to raise their hand? If we've gotten through all the questions. I don't see any more coming up. No one has their hand raised. I think it might be a good idea at this point just to briefly go over the timeline again, just in case someone missed the beginning when Deborah was speaking about what comes next after this meeting.
No, that's a great idea, Holly. So following this feedback session today, we'll take inputs via the discussion board. If anybody has anything following today, definitely feel free to go and post anything there. We'll take feedback through, I believe our timeline said close of business next Tuesday. So we'll take all that feedback into consideration. We'll produce a final set of documents. We will put those out on our website, and we'll take them to our board on December 20th for approval. And once we receive approval there, we will submit the emergency rules to the governor's office for approval. And if we do receive approval, we should be ready to go live with the program early 2024. And like we just alluded to, if we do not receive approval, we would go through the regular rulemaking process with a program start projected of late summer 2024.
Okay. Will the feedback session be posted online? If so, when? That will be online sometime today. I just need to look on the back end and see the best way to get that posted. I do have this recording as an on-demand webinar, so I believe that that means that someone will be able to go back in and see it later on, or register to see it. We also had a comment that just for general, just so those of you who may be new to our programs, Home National Housing Trust Fund, the Oklahoma Housing Trust Fund, and Affordable Housing Tax Credits are all programs administered by OHFA and may be used for adaptive reuse. So Danette and Corey, who are both on this call, they would be happy to answer any of your questions that you have. Their information is on the website, but I will also, so just go to our website under, I should know what it's called, but I don't off the top of my head. Developer financing and compliance. The short URL for that is ohfa.org/developers, and that lists all of the programs that we have available for housing development and gives a little bit of more information about all of those. How long do you expect the program to exist?
The way the program is designed, it will be a perpetual loan fund. It should last into perpetuity. The only piece of the program that expends away is the down payment and closing cost assistance, because that's truly a grant. But the roughly $100 million loan fund and the $60 million loan fund should revolve in perpetuity.
Okay. Anything else that anyone would like to add or ask before we end this webinar?
We greatly appreciate everybody's partnership and interest in this program. This is a very exciting time for OHFA and the state. This is the largest investment that the state of Oklahoma has ever made in housing. And we're looking forward to getting this program up and running on the ground with your assistance. And thank you guys for attending.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.